Hello and welcome to Little Dove Crochet's first video tutorial where I'm going to show you how to make an African flower. I really love these flowers. They make beautiful blankets and they're not as complicated as they look. If you've followed me on socials for a while, you'll know that I've been working on this one for quite some time now and I'm nearly finished. So let's begin. For this tutorial you'll need a pair of scissors, a crochet hook and 3 different coloured yarns. I'm using acrylic DK weight yarn, double knit yarn, and a 4mm hook, but of course you could use whichever yarn and hook you feel comfortable with. I have put a list of the different colours that I've used, the yarns I've used, on my blog for this blanket, and I'll put the link in the video information for you. This tutorial uses UK terms throughout and assumes that you already know how to make a slip knot, a slip stitch, a chain, a double crochet and a treble crochet. So we're going to begin by making the centre of our flower. So if you get your yarn colour that you want to use for your centre, make yourself a slip knot and pop your hook in and then make 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not a fan of magic circles. I've had a bad experience with them in the past. Less said about that the better. And I also don't really like making chains and then joining them to form a ring to work into. So what I like to do is work into the first chain that I made, and that chain will become the centre. That will become the centre of my flower. So we're now going to work a treble into the centre of the flower, so into the first chain that you made. And you'll see now that your chains that you made at the beginning, the 4 chains, are going to represent the first treble, and then you've got 1 more treble into the centre of the circle. Chain 1 and then make another pair of trebles into that same centre stitch. Chain 1 again and another pair of trebles into that same centre stitch. So now you've got 3 pairs of trebles separated by 1 chain. We're going to repeat that 3 times more so that we have 6 pairs of trebles separated by 1 chain. So chain 1, another pair of trebles, chain 1 again and another pair of trebles, chain 1 again, and this is our last pair of trebles, and then 1 more chain, and now we're going to join our round into the top of the first pair of trebles with a slip stitch. Okay, you can cut your yarn and fasten off, and that's your centre. So you've got 6 pairs of trebles and 1 chain in between those pairs of trebles to form your centre. We're now going to start making the petals of our African flower. So take your yarn colour that you'd like to use for the petals. I'm using this nice mustard yellow. I'm a big fan of mustard yellow. Make a slip knot and put it on your hook as before. And we're going to join into one of the chain spaces that we made from the previous round. So pop your hook into the space. Now I just make a double crochet straight in there and 1 chain, and that is going to represent your first treble. You're then going to make another treble into that same chain space, and then 1 chain, and then another pair of trebles into that same chain space. And then move along to the next chain space and make a pair of trebles, 1 chain and another pair of trebles, all in that same chain space. And then move along to the next chain space and repeat the process again. So a pair of trebles, one chain and a pair of trebles. Keep going around your flower into those chain spaces, making a pair of trebles, one chain, pair of trebles until you get to the end. You'll see it's starting to take on a bit more of a hexagonal shape now. So I'm on to my last chain space, pair of trebles in there. One chain and a pair of trebles. And that brings you back now to the beginning of your round. And we need to join this round with a slip stitch into the top of the first pair of trebles that we made. So join that. And that's the first part of your petals made. So you've got there in each chain space a pair of trebles, one chain and a pair of trebles all the way around. We're now going to make the second part of our petals, so continue with your petal colour and we're going to work into the first chain space. So once again I'm going to do a double crochet into that chain space and one chain, and that's going to count as my first treble. You then need to make 6 more trebles into that same chain space. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Move along to the next chain space and work 7 trebles into that same chain space. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can now start to see your petals forming. You're going to work 7 trebles into each of those chain spaces around until you've got 6 petals. So we're on the last petal now, so 7 trebles into that last chain space. And then we're going to join our round to the top of the first treble in the first petal, so that one there, that stitch, you see that stitch, so pop a slip stitch in there to join it and then cut your yarn because we don't need that colour anymore. and fasten off. And there we go, there's your flower with all its petals. So you can see the hexagonal shape forming there. Now at this point, if you were joining as you go along, you might want to make a little batch of flowers or all of your flowers before you start the next process. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do the whole African flower so you can see how it's constructed. So take your yarn that you want to use for your background colour. I'm using this nice ivory colour. Make a slip knot and pop it on your hook. And you're going to join into the middle of one of your petals. So we had 7 stitches in a petal, so count 4 in and that's your middle. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to pop my hook in and I'm going to do a double crochet into that stitch. Okay, now work a double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. You're now going to work a treble into the round below the first petal round. So it's that gap there. Just make a normal treble crochet, and what you'll find is when you bring it up, it will look slightly elongated, and that helps to form the shape of the petals. Next, work a double crochet into each of the next 7 stitches around the next petal. And then once again, work one of those elongated trebles into that first petal round, into the gap there, and pull it up. And then you've got another elongated treble there. Once again, work a double crochet into each of the next 7 stitches around the next petal. Oh, got my hook stuck. There we go. And then a treble into the first petal round. Just have a look at that. That's how it's starting to look. And you can continue doing that all the way around to the beginning. So 1 double crochet into each of the 7 stitches around the petal, and then your elongated treble working into that first petal round. So I'll join you again once we get towards the end of the round. So we're back now to the first petal. So do your elongated treble and then work a double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. And join your round with a slip stitch into the first double crochet. Yeah. So now you can see your petals have got a lovely shape to them, and we've still got that hexagonal shape. So we're going to go on to the next round now, which will complete your African flower. This is the round that if we were joining as we would go along, we would do that as part of the process, but I'm going to show you the whole round so that you've got a full African flower. We're now on to the last round of our African flower. So to begin, make 3 chain, 1, 2, 3, and this will count as 1 treble and 1 chain, and make another treble into that same stitch, so the stitch at the bottom of the chains that you've just made. And this is actually forming a corner to our African flower. Make a treble into each of the next 7 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this brings us to the middle of our next petal, and we're going to form a corner into the next stitch. So 1 treble, 1 chain, 1 treble into the same stitch, and there's your corner formed. Make 1 treble into each of the next 7 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and again that brings us round to the middle of our next petal, where we're going to make another corner. So do a treble into the next stitch, 1 chain, 1 treble. You're going to continue in that way all around the flower. So 1 treble into each of the next 7 stitches, then make your corner, which is 1 treble, 1 chain, 1 treble, into the middle stitch of the petal, and continue all the way around until you get to the beginning. I'll see you there. So we're now on to our last edge, made our last corner. We're going into our last edge, so you're going to make your trebles into each stitch along. That's number 4. Number 6, and then number 7. And then you're going to join your round by slip stitching into the second chain that you made. That's that one there. Okay, and cut your yarn and fasten off. And there you go, you've completed your first African flower. Thank you very much for watching my African flower tutorial. If you'd like to see more tutorials, please visit my channel and hit the subscribe button. Keep up to date with what I'm making and what's coming up by following me on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, bye!